historical events, in my opinion, was in 1857 when the British suddenly realized that the Indians were not so, passive in their presence, and there was an uprising in 1857, and then the British had huge losses in the Boer War in South Africa. So there was this sort of like imperial anxiety about what's going on. We're not men anymore. So that's when this movement started. And how it's linked to empire was that having an empire was a test that they were a manly nation. So manliness and nationalism, what made a good man, the traits that made a good Christian manly man, was also the traits that made a strong nation, like muscular, powerful, etc., etc. Basically, what they had to do was create an other. So if the British are manly and they're conquering India and other places, but India was their jewel in the crown, so they were focused on India, then obviously the fact that they were successful empire builders was because Indian men were effeminate. They couldn't protect their country, and so the British were going to show them how to be proper men and so on. But now, they didn't think of all Indian men as effeminate. So they categorized men, and the most famous categorization was the martial races and the non-martial races. So they had martial races like Pathans, Sikhs, and so on. So British decided that these people were manly in that they were martial and strong and could do war. However, they didn't have the other traits of Christian manliness, like patriotism, rationality. And then there was the non-martial races, of which the Bengalis were the most prominent. So the British were very contemptuous of Bengalis in terms of, they saw them as weak, effeminate, etc., etc. Now, there was a reason for this, because the Bengalis were also the most contentious people that challenged the British Empire, because they worked as babus, as they would say, in the British bureaucracies. They were also closer to the British in terms of knowing policy, and they challenged that. So one way that the British sort of neutralized this kind of contentiousness was also by calling them effeminate and making fun of them in political cartoons and so on.